Good afternoon, or good evening, I should say, ladies and gentlemen. We are back for another episode of the Golden View podcast. It is 7 p.m. in the evening. I guess I have my time off a little bit, Giulio. Usually you're joining us from some exotic place like the golf course or at BC
Oh
Lions
yeah,
practice,
right.
right? Right. So anyway, let's just get those mistakes out of the way, just push right through. But you and I chatted a little bit off the air. Um, Four straight victories for the BC Lions. Obviously, the win over Calgary yesterday at BC Place. Man, that game is packed full of so many things, right? The Solomon Elamimian jersey retirement, the return of Vernon Adams, the accomplishment of TJ Lee reaching 600 tackles. There are a huge number of things in that game, but let's start with the first thing, which is the 4-0 record.
Sorry, you cut out there, Ben. I didn't hear the end of that.
That's okay. Let's start with the 4-0 record. Obviously, the four straight wins for the BC Lions. I was talking a lot about. We're going to talk about some of the other events that were packed into that game because there was a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mina, I don't know if I'm surprised by the 4-0. I think that the Lions have kind of found their groove, especially defensively. I think special teams have been better. So as far as complementary football goes, I think that the Lions have reached a point where they're playing the style of football that Buck Pierce wants them to play. I don't think any of us would argue with the offense and what it's done for pretty much the most of the year. Nathan has been, very, very consistent and, he's been spectacular the last little while. But I think all of us were, anybody that follows the team and understands the game, I think the concern was on defense, right? And you got to hand Ryan McMaden and that coaching staff a ton of credit because of their ability to bring in a couple of guys that have really made an impact, right? Levi Bell and Bradley and I have stepped in and been different maker. And the other part of that is, Jonah Tavai is playing as well as I've seen him from a consistency standpoint. Dwayne Hendricks has been very consistent, and Tomasi Lalile has been very good. So, they're getting contributions right across the board up front, and now they're getting Hayden Harris into the lineup, and I'm sure you're going to see him a little bit more defensively. So, really, really excited about where this team can go. I just think that they're really kind of rolling into form here at the most important time.
I got a funny thing about Tavai too. I just love watching that guy on the field. The guy's big. He doesn't have his jersey tucked in. I was watching his character on the, there's something about watching Tavai, right? I mean, he's a beast out there. Let's talk about, there's something about his character on that field that I see.
He's a guy that if you go to practice, Jonah's one of the more vocal guys. Him and Stanley Berryhill, I'd have to say, are 1 and 2 as far as setting a tone, and a good tone, a positive tone.
Yeah, exactly.
They're always talking. And I think Jonah too, like it is, when you start to play professional football up here, for a lot of guys, it takes some time.
Yeah,
it takes the time to kind of start to understand what works. You get an off season, you come back, you're a little wiser, smarter. You've trained a little bit differently because the game's different. And I think in his case, he had a very good training camp and he's steadily progressed, but I really think that he's come into his own as far as, being a real handful in the middle of that offense. Like he gets underneath your pad level because he's not the tallest guy, but man, is he strong and he's quick and powerful.
Yeah.
If he gets under the pad level as an offensive lineman, you're in trouble because you're going to be on skates.
Yeah.
So
he is big and nasty.
Yeah. He's a very, very good player.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much the return of TJ Lee helps a little bit too. Obviously, just because of what he brings with his veteran presence, years of experience, and sort of leadership ability. I mean, maybe it makes the guys on the field a little more comfortable now that Gary Peters has TJ back. I was looking at the last game, depth chart. I'm not going to share it here because we don't need to. But Kent Jr., Carter Jr., Lee, and Peters is a pretty nice, set of backs out there right on the boundary side and the field side.
Yeah, well, TJ, I think TJ does a lot for you not just on the field, but I think what he does for your locker room, right? He's a very, very positive influence in the locker room. He's
Yeah.
been around. He's a very positive, upbeat guy. I think maybe one of the reasons they initially brought him in, obviously they needed the help in the secondary, but his presence in the locker room, there's been no coincidence that since he's arrived, that secondary's kind of leveled itself out, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
again, a very smart move by Ryan Rigmaiden to bring him back. And again, like as I said, a lot of people, when I think he first got here, they were like, well, I mean, he's a 10-year vet, is no training camp, no this, no that. And and he's really fit in nicely, right? Like, and I think it all stems to it, like football is, you can narrow it down to one thing. It's the line of scrimmage. Now you can have all the talent and obviously all the other players matter. I
Yeah.
don't
Of course.
want to downplay that, but it's the line of scrimmage where the game is won and lost. And if you can win
Yeah.
the line of scrimmage, you're going to have such an effect on the game, both offense and defense. So if you're getting to the quarterback, that means that your linebackers are freed up, because usually if you're getting pressure with 4 guys or 5 guys, you can free up those linebackers to do a bit more. And if you're getting to the quarterback, it's going to help your secondary, because the quarterback doesn't have as much time to throw the football, doesn't have
Yeah.
much time to survey the field. He doesn't have, I mean, it
Yeah.
just changes the entire dynamic of the game. And the
Yeah.
same can be said offensively. If
Yeah.
your offensive line is giving your quarterback time and establishing a presence up front, then you can run the ball. You're
Yeah.
good on first down. And this is exactly what's happening with the Lions.
Yeah.
They're very, very good on first down, by either running the football or by that quick passing game. And Nathan
Yeah.
is an elite quarterback. And
Yeah. He
I
is.
keep telling people over and over and over again, he is worth the price of admission because of his ability. Very few guys have what he has. And I just find it such a treat to go and have the opportunity to watch him play each and every week, because I love the way he thinks the game and he processes the game. It's just on another level. And so when you have elite quarterbacking, throw the offensive line in there and throw as good as their team right now is rounding into shape to make a real serious run down the stretch here.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned offensive and defensive lines, because this has been bandied about quite a bit on the live broadcast with you and Moj. I've read about it. We've all heard about it. The injuries to that offensive line, and Dejon Allen has not played a game this season. What was he, right? What was he brought in for?
Yeah, well, he was a
Right.
big trade acquisition, right? Remember they traded with Toronto in the offseason for
Yeah.
Ryder Varga.
Yeah.
And he only played what? He played the first game or
Yeah.
the second game, and that's where he tore his
Yeah.
bicep. So you're right. You know what I mean? They haven't played pretty much. They played pretty much the entire season without him.
Yeah. And Foucault is still out, if I stand
Yeah, well,
corrected as
Foucault,
well, right?
yeah, he's out. But hey, Paul Charbonneau, the offensive line coach, I think, he doesn't get enough credit for the job that he's done. The Lions are
No.
leading the league in fewest sacks.
Right.
And, they played against the Calgary Stampeders the last 2 out of the last 3 weeks. And, I think they've given up 3 sacks in total. Um, and they've had a lot of injuries. They've moving people
Yeah.
in and out. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. No,
it's
I was going
not
to get
that
to that.
easy. It's not that easy to lose Jarrell Broxton and just bump out Corey Woodruff and then bring in Brandon Yates, who, basically, has been practicing the last few weeks, but you throw him into that starting spot, and they have done a really, really good job of, you know, plugging in and playing guys and not missing a beat. And we
Yeah.
always talk about the offensive line and the cohesion that is required to be successful. Like, you need to know what the guy beside you is doing. You need to have that trust in the guy beside you. And so for the Lions to have gone through what they've gone through, Andrew Pearson deserves a ton of credit. And when he filled in for Michael Couture for 6 weeks, they didn't miss a beat. So it really is a very amazing story. I think that
Yeah.
how that line has been able to really, stand the test and be able to just keep moving along, especially with all the changes that they've had to have happen.
Yeah, and then one of the notes I had too was, you're talking about Rourke's performance. What was the turnovers in the first half of the Toronto game, and then the turnovers yesterday? How big
Mhm.
of a concern is that for you?
Well, I'll say this. Um, One of the things about Nathan that is so exciting is that ability to make something happen when it looks like, the play's dead.
Yeah,
And it's a couple of really good examples in this last game. You know, I think the first interception he threw, I think, was miscommunication. The receiver was running out. He threw more inside. So I
yeah,
don't know whether he anticipated Barry Hill running a curl instead of an out, and that's why the interception. But the second one to Micah Teets, the linebacker, I think that was an example of him trying to make something happen,
hmm
and he forced something downfield. And if you talk to him, he'll probably tell you that he knows when he watches. See, the one thing that I've learned over the years, Ben, is this, and Dave Dickinson was the one who I used to talk to extensively about
right,
quarterbacking, and he's always so, whenever he talked to me about it, always made so much sense. But he said to me at one point, quarterbacks are wired to win on every play. They want success on every play.
right,
And sometimes that desire and the willingness to want to make something happen can hurt you. It can be your downfall in that you're forcing things, you're trying to make something happen. Sometimes you got to realize that the defense wins, right? Sometimes they're gonna have you and they're gonna say, hey, you've got to be able to say, hey, you won that snap or you run that series, but I'm going to come back the next series. So you throw the ball away, you don't take a sack, you go out and say, okay, I'm going to let my defense go out, and next time I get it, I'm going to be a little bit wiser. So those are all lessons that you learn. I would never take away Nathan Rourke's aggressiveness and his desire to make something happen, because if you remember at the very end, very key play to James Butler, that play there was exactly like the previous one, except it didn't hurt him. He was kind of deciding where to go with it, looking right, looking the middle. He wanted to throw it. He pulled it back and then found Butler at the last minute and threw it out to him. And Butler took it up the sideline. I mean, those plays sometimes at the last minute, they can hurt you, but they
right.
can also help you.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
that line that you've got to find, that aggressiveness. And, you know, 9 times out of 10, Nathan is right in those situations and makes something happen. And on those occasions, it happens. You're going to make a mistake here and there.
Yeah.
But I would take that game and take the mistake with everything else that he does. My goodness, is he got some talent. It's fun to watch.
It is, and I at the start of the season, maybe he struggled a bit, and he was hurt, and they put Basoli in, and they lost to Winnipeg. And I think about those two Winnipeg losses early in the season, and how they could sort of loomed large then. Will they now? Obviously, if they tie with Winnipeg in the West, Winnipeg has a tiebreaker on them, right? But
Yeah.
if they were to
Well,
play
that's going to be
Winnipeg,
interesting, Ben. It's going to be
right?
interesting because Calgary and Calgary, Winnipeg, and BC, if they all end up with the
Yeah,
same amount of points, it's going to be interesting to see how all that breaks down.
yeah,
Because
yeah. Well, yeah,
if
it's
I'm
not
not
boring, right?
mistaken, Calgary has beaten Winnipeg 3 times.
Yeah, yeah. They killed him. I watched that game in July.
Yeah,
Oh,
they've
they
they've they've
just
beaten them
they
three
destroyed
times.
Winnipeg. Oh,
So I don't
yeah,
know
it was
how it's going to
bad.
work. I don't
Yeah,
know how it's going to work,
yeah,
but I tell you, if you're a fan of the game, and I said this the other day to Glenn Suter from TSN, I said, have you can you remember a year where
right.
there's been this much, like every game that I turn on, it
Yeah, I
seems
know.
to go down to the wire.
Yeah, yeah.
They're
It's
exciting.
fantastic.
Like
Yeah,
you know, it just it's just been one of those years where the football has been just exceptional as
It
far
has.
as
It has.
value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has. Let's shift gears a little bit here too, Julia, because we want to talk a little bit about Solomon Elamimian's jersey retirement.
Yeah.
What a game, right? We've got the Vernon Adams return as well. Solomon's ceremony at halftime. Wally Bono's little speech as well. Obviously, drafted Solomon, coached him. That was a great moment, and I was glad to be there at the game watching it. And I don't know what it does for these players on the sidelines right now, too. There's so many angles from that retirement ceremony, so many things to be taken from it. And I wonder how much it inspires the guys that are there now. Because, Solomon really held the standard, right? You watch that defense for a while with him and Adam Big Hill. Obviously, his rookie of the year, they're winning the Grey Cup. There's a lot there for this team to unpack. And obviously for Lions fans to, really be excited about with the playoffs coming up this year.
Yeah, well, you said it really. Like, Solomon was a generational player, right? He was exceptional. And one of the true joys that I've had over the years is that, when you get to know some of these guys off the field, you have I have a real appreciation for not only their ability, Solomon's ability speaks for itself. He's a Hall of Famer. He deserves everything that he's going to get because he was such an elite player. And that's saying something when you talk about professional football, right? Or a professional sport, when you reach that level, that you're that much better than everybody else to be recognized the way that he has. And he deserves every single bit of it. But what I cherish more is the relationship that I have with Sully outside of football. And not that we hang out together, but he was just such a class act. The way he conducted himself, the way that he was always so approachable, the way he was honest and forthright, and the way he talked and the way he conducted himself with the fans, everything that you want in a professional athlete and everything you want as an organization is players like that. And so, to see him get recognized the way that he did, and the players that were there, Giovanni Lofoy and Manny Arsenal and Adam Bighill were there. Obviously, Coach Buono. It serves or it makes me think to all the great players and great teams that they had here. And I was just thrilled for Solly. Anytime you have a ceremony like that where you're recognized, I know that he was pretty emotional at times yesterday, and I just couldn't be more happy for the guy. He was just, he was brilliant.
Yeah, he really was. And you look for him on that field all the time, right? Certain seasons there, the standard was there, him and Adam.
Sorry, Ben, but you mentioned something there that I think that it's important to clarify is that, the great teams that I've been lucky to be around, I can say that they share certain qualities. And one of the qualities is this: when your best players are your hardest workers, your best players are the ones that are, practice hard, set a standard, the way they prepare, the way that they conduct themselves, the way that they put the team first and not themselves when they could. There's a lot of guys that know that they're stars and they put themselves ahead of everybody else and they can get away with it. Those kinds of guys don't create great teams. But the guys like Solomon Elamimian, the Adam Bighills, Brent Johnson, Dave Dickinson, all these guys, and when you're around them, G. Roy Simon, the Jamie Terraces, all these guys that set a standard about the way that they practice. And so if you're a young player or a new player to the team, you have to, look, because, when you get there, you're trying to find your way, right? As a player, you're trying to fit in, and you're trying to, hey, who are the dogs on this team? Like, who are the guys that are, the leaders? And when the leaders are the guys that are out there busting their ass, it's a pretty easy message that you better bust your ass too. Because if G. Roy Simon's out there running scout team at 100 miles an hour because he's trying to get better, or Brent Johnson is not taking a rep off because, the guy's he was a player of the year, he was an all-star, and yet I never saw him miss a practice. I never saw him miss a rep. And so when you have guys like that, and Sully was the same way, Biggie was the same way, you have to fit in, you have to work hard and establish that culture. And for so long, that culture has been around because they set a standard. And that's so important when you're trying to chase a championship.
Yeah, it is, right? And, next thing I had a few other notes here too. TJ Lee and 600 tackles. You want to talk about setting a standard and
TJ's like Dante Marsh. He's like Gary Peters. All these guys that have been around a long time.
Yeah,
they're great players. That's what great players do. They mean, like, TJ's a great player. He's a great tackler. These the TJs, the Ryan Phillips, the Corey Banks, the Dante Marsh, all these guys, they're elite. And that's why they're elite. They have tackle, they stick their nose in there, they work hard, and just a lot of respect for those guys.
Yeah. One last thing before we wrap it up. Should we open the Pandora's box of the rule changes?
Okay, I'll give you because I've gone over this so many times. I'm not against change. Okay, you want to move the goalposts? Let's try it. You want to try to change. Some of the other things. The one thing I didn't want to see them do, to me, is one of the pillars of the Canadian Football League is the field.
Okay.
It's width, it's length. I think that's something that shouldn't have been changed. Now, I'm also a realist in that I understand that maybe some things need to change. Maybe they're trying to make the game more exciting. And until you see those changes implemented and the effect that they're going to have, then I'm going to be open to the change.
Right. Same.
But if it doesn't work, then I'm going to be, I'm going to be one of the first to say that it needs to go back to where it was. The only other thing too, Ben, that I'll say about this is that I think, to me, and I've talked to a whole bunch of players, and I think the thing that it irks a lot of people is that just the way it went down, it seemed a little sneaky, right? Like there's something else at play. Like when you make changes like that to the game, a game with the history that this game has, and you don't consult coaches, general managers, players, and you just implement it, I don't know if that would have been my strategy. Now, there could be a whole bunch of other things at play. All of a sudden I started hearing all this stuff about expansion, and people internationally are interested and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know, maybe there's a picture here, and I don't know, but I can honestly tell you that, I just, like I said, as far as the rules go, I'll wait and see and see what happens.
Yeah. Interesting. Right. Because Ambrosi had all kinds of schemes, right? And a guy that used to be my neighbor, I don't live in the same condo anymore, but a guy used to be my neighbor, John Buchanan, obviously coached high school football in North Vancouver.
I played with John Buchanan.
That's right. So it's funny because he just popped into my head. We're not neighbors anymore, but John and I used to talk about this stuff a few years ago, even like before the pandemic, before I started the podcast. And he didn't like Ambrosi either, right? He's always like, there's these pie in the sky schemes, and there's these rules, and there's these things thrown out there that Ambrosi threw out where it's like, okay, guys, like, is this really going to happen?
Well, we're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah.
I don't want to get my blood boiling before anything before it happens. I want to see. I want to wait and see. Then we'll go from there.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to wrap it up here. Good to have you back, Giulio. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no problem.